welcome back to the Boundary Corner podcast with my co-host Brian Siegler. I am Curtis Wilson. Big guy, how you doing tonight?
Oh man, I'm good. Both classes this week were canceled, so I've been kind of living the normal evening run the last 3 nights, man. It's been nice. Both.
How did you get that lucky?
Monday was for, unfortunately, sadder circumstances. I guess a friend from school had passed away, so professor was attending the funeral, canceled class. The professor gave us a mental health night, so
mental health night.
I'll take it.
You need those. You need mental health nights. You need mental health days. I 100% agree.
Shout out, Cam. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're rolling tonight. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna put West Virginia behind us a little bit, and we're gonna try to move forward and see what we can do with the rest of the season.
Absolutely. Tuesday afternoon, you ball it up. Regardless, good, bad, or indifferent, you take the shot towards the trash can. You sink it.
You say Kobe.
You say Kobe, and you move on, because that's all you can do. If you continue to dwell on it, you will drive yourself a little bit insane, and we're not going to do that because we are on to Richmond. All right, but before we hop into that, we got some other things we want to talk about. A few national stories and couple fun things, but let's do this, Brian. Say it, Brian. Just say it.
I told you so. And what I'm referring to is that preseason polls are bullshit because 19 of the preseason top 25 have all taken L's in 3 weeks.
That's insane. And some of those have taken multiple L's. Miami. Some are gone. Some probably won't be able to get back. But it's to the point. It's a preseason. I heard it being said recently. It's just something to talk about. Yeah. You should take it serious. If you get preseason ranked, you can be hyped. It's fun. But until you get on the field and start playing games against competition, it's worthless.
I like preseason previews and previews that put a power ranking on things. I don't like official polls. I think that's where I need to differentiate between what I'm talking about here. I love learning about what teams are bringing to the table in the year. I love people trying to take those things on paper and try to put that out there and see kind of where those predictions fall. I don't like those polls mattering in terms of how the season shapes. Yes.
Exactly. Perception. The top 25 poll is such a perception thing, and it's when you have someone roll in November and a team's they're 7-1. And this is, it happens everywhere. They're 7-1, but they have 3 top 20 wins. And you go back and look, well, 2 of those top 20 wins were with teams that are not even getting votes anymore. And, the other team's 24th.
Like, at least the college football playoff puts that somewhat in context, but it still shapes how we perceive the whole thing.
It's true. You don't see much variation from it. And I think, will it ever go away? No. So it's always going to be a hot topic.
Yep.
And it also shows you, too, that to me, there are writers throughout the country who just throw names out there just to throw names out there. It'd be fun if someone took if someone looked at all the writers and just like listed them each out of how they start at the beginning of the season and then continue it and essentially crown the best AP writer. Like, man, your top 25 great at the beginning. It never really wavered. You took people out when they had a loss, like a bad loss. Give that guy like $100,000 or something. Now, Brian, speaking of the CFP, the committee announced tonight that it will no longer hold a vote on expansion next Tuesday.
Realignment has given them cold feet.
Well,
I know there's other factors playing in there, but I feel like the realignment thing and SEC has given the committee as a whole cold feet in terms of moving on this. They're now talking about they're going to consider potentially 8 along with 12. They still say 12 is the best overall model, but they want to address some of the issues that have been brought to their attention with it. Yeah. And I mean, I said it myself, 12 isn't perfect, but what I said is 12, I think, is best for everyone involved. So
12 is the best option for blue bloods and for up and comers and for the G5. That's what
it gives enough room for everybody to eat a little bit.
Yep, exactly. And
because the blue bloods are going to eat regardless. It gives a little more room for everybody else to eat a little bit as well.
Exactly. And probably the biggest thing with the realignment is when they were going in there, their expectation was, well, we're going to give 6 because we have 5 power conferences that consistently put out top 10 teams, and we're going to give a bone to a G5 conference. Well, now they have to look at it to say, is the realignment of the G5, you hate to say this, and you feel for those teams, is the realignment of the G5 going to be good enough to beckon a spot at the table? I mean, they're losing Cincinnati. They're using UCF. They're losing Houston. They're losing, BYU is independent, but you could still see them as getting the at-large bid potentially. Yeah. So it's like, are we just going to – I think eventually they're going to stick with 12, but you know what I think they're going to do, Brian? 5 automatic bids, top 5 conferences. And because I think what they're seeing is like the new Big 12 is not going to be as good as the old Big 12, but it's not going to be lower than some of the G5 teams. It's going to be in the middle there. So we're essentially going to give them a bone that if they can pull a top 12 team off every year, they're going to get in.
Yeah, and I guess the other big question is that, now with a lot of these big G5 schools moving to the Big 12, the SEC getting stronger, at what point is more teams actually diluting the product in terms of automatic bids?
True. And that's why I think they go to 5, and then they and then it lays where it may. So hopefully they get it done quick. I mean, I think also what might be happening too is the CFP might be on some sort of scrutiny of as these realignments are happening. Fox is making phone calls. Maybe CBS is making phone calls saying, hey, we want in on these playoff games. And for them, the smartest move is just going to be wait and see what happens. Because if you've got multiple bids on multiple games, then you're really talking for the CFP in general, just to have stronger leverage over ESPN, where ESPN can dictate all the terms.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. I think the whole point of this long term is to wrench some of the leverage away from ESPN and SEC in general and try to get it a little bit more balanced in terms of how those distribution rights are kind of divvied out there. We'll see if this is another part of that leverage along with the alliance with the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12.
Absolutely. All right, Brian. Well, let's turn now to the Hokie side. Let's talk about a few things that came out of the presser. Yes, we dropped it in the garbage, but we still need to address both of these quotes here. From the Fuente presser on Monday that we listened to. So the first thing was talking about the offense, and this was the quote. We stunk. You don't get down there 3 times and come away with nothing and not reevaluate and talk about and look at all aspects of it top to bottom. We weren't very good. What do you say to that quote, Brian? What is that telling you?
Depends on who he's referring to when he says we. I mean, in general, what we talked about is that, a lot of this falls back on the coaches because when you look at it, either the calls were bad, we can debate that if you want to, but objectively, I think some of those calls were bad. But outside of that, if you're saying the execution wasn't there, okay, well, it's the coach's responsibility to get the players ready to execute the plays in these types of situations.
Exactly.
So either way, it's falling back on either preparation or the calls themselves. So, that's one aspect of it. What was your takeaway?
Very similar to that. The whole thing that I like to hear is the reevaluate and look at all aspects. Because in the past, a lot of his quotes had always been about execution. A lot of his quote has always been, again, to me, it always had slanted toward the players more than the coaches, because most time people, when they hear execution, the first thing they think is, well, that's a slight on the players. You've always made the point of, well, execution is just as much on the coaches because it's their job to teach it and get it executed correctly. So when I hear that, hopefully going back in, you're looking and he's sitting there with the entire offensive coaching staff and saying, okay, here was the first play. Why did we do this?
Okay.
Right. I mean, and start it top down. Say, why
and some of what you're talking about kind of goes into the second quote that we're going to talk about here.
Yes. So to me, the whole thing is great. You're going to reevaluate it. You're going to well, Brian Kelly also fired a whole offensive staff a few years ago, and since then has paid nothing but dividends. So he executed his staff and has since
yeah, he definitely pulled the trigger that Fuente has yet to do yet. So
has yet to do. With the other,
he also killed a guy. So I think that was the reference.
And we just Twitter. Oh, I know that was the reference. But the other piece is, again, you'd always heard him talk about execution. Now, the question is, as you reevaluate it, what changes come from it? You can reevaluate. I can sit here and, we can reevaluate anything in life if it's not going well. But if you sit there and say, well, we're still just going to do the same old thing, then what does it matter? Because the product that's happening, you didn't you reevaluate it to get to the same answer. Nobody wants.
So I'm gonna use it the same way that I applied in my job. So data management, data analysis. If you collect data and you have no intentions of doing anything with that data, what the hell are you collecting the data for? If you're not going to have some sort of application that you are collecting the data for, you need to move on. So reevaluation is great, but if you don't turn that into actionable changes moving forward, then it's all for naught.
All for naught at all. Now, going into what we talked about, the top-down approach, the next quote was this, and this is him sort of defending and talking about Brad Cornelison. But I would also say there's nobody that iron out the minutiae it takes to give our guys a chance to be successful than Brad.
Where's your bullshit meter on that one?
God. It's overflowing, man. I mean, because the thing is, if he is such great at minutia and ironing things out, we wouldn't be talking about this in year 6 because it would have been hammered out in the last few years. So he's probably not great at it, or he could be great at very individual aspects of ironing out minutia, but not ironing out an entire offensive coordinator type role.
Well, I think it goes back to what we were just talking about with the collecting data, is that I think he's decent at scheme, okay at game planning, but awful at adjustments and situational play calls. So, I mean, if you're going to get the minutia and break it down and have it there, and you're still not going to make changes into how you approach those other aspects that you have known are flaws in your game, then again, it doesn't matter how good you are at ironing out the minutia if you're not going to apply it
in some way
game day.
I can't remember if it was me and you talking, Brian, or if I overheard it in a conversation on radio or other various avenues, but There was a discussion this week about there was a team that they knew that the offensive coordinator ran 20 to 20. But when it got inside the 20, essentially the head coach took over. The head coach had the background in offensive coordinating. And when it clicked inside the 20, didn't matter. That was his focus. It helped. And when I started thinking about it, well, this helps a couple reasons. You know, if you've got a coach who's running the scout teams, okay, he's seeing both sides of the ball. You know, where's his next focus though? And for that coach, it was the focus is I'm going to focus inside the 20-yard line. Now, I'm not sure if that coach is focusing on both sides. Maybe he was. Maybe he was giving input to the defensive coordinator about looks that team's giving. And in his own team, I'm taking over the play controls. I'm going to call the plays from here because I am focused on this piece. So it's got to be something like that. So if you tell me Saturday afternoon we're watching the game and the sideline reporter says, you know, Justin Fuente told us yesterday in our production meeting that plays inside the 25 he would be taking over strictly. I hear that like, okay, you're actually making a change. And we actually get to see if anything's different. Right? And that's what we want.
We have been pretty awful on red zone opportunities really throughout the year far in the first 3 games. We got to get better. There's no way around it. We got to get better. If we don't get better at putting points on the board when we get in scoring areas, then it's going to be a long year. We got to get better.
And the issue is,
and I know what was it you brought up that you saw Monday night that the Mannings were discussing? Yeah,
Peyton Manning came up Monday night, and if y'all watched it, what he talked about was third down plays. And he referenced like 3rd and 10 because I think that was the play on the field. Third down plays are your playmaker plays. You figure – essentially he's saying the offensive coordinator in their mind should be figuring out how to get one of these people the ball because they're the best players and they have the best opportunity to get the first down. What he backed it up with it and said, now 4th down calls are essentially scheme calls. You essentially, it's 4th and whatever. I think at that point it was 4th and 3 or something. That's a scheme call. You look inside your thing and say, this is our best play in the scheme for 4th and 3 or less, or 4th and 4 or less. This is how we're going to execute this play right here, this play. And when we started talking about it, it was just like, yeah, that makes sense, right? Because you can't scheme a 3rd down and 10 play. You can't. You have to figure out a way to scheme your best player open, but that is still scheming your best player open, not allowing the scheme to derive who gets the ball.
Yeah, and I feel like we are a lot more dependent on scheme for success, especially in the passing game, than we really need to be. Mm-hmm. We need to do a better job of imposing our will, and I hope that this game this week is when we really start to see some of that.
Maybe not. Because Brian, there's a lot of stuff going on, and probably the biggest is at right tackle.
Yeah,
I mean, we found out after the game. We see Broughton get out there and Terrell Smith get out there. No Parker Clements. Find out Clements had been banged up, didn't travel. Silas out. We know both he and Clements participated in practice on Sunday, which is a good thing.
Yep.
But it's right now. Let me ask this:
to what degree they participated is the question, but the fact that they were at least out there doing their thing is at least somewhat encouraging.
Okay, let me ask this: let's say they're both nicked; they could play, but essentially, if you played them this week, they could get further injured and they'd be out 3 weeks after this. Is this a week that essentially you put on Vance Weiss to say, figure out Tyrell, Brock Hoffman, someone else at right tackle? Because we need to let Silas get 100 because we have a stretch of games starting at Notre Dame that are really going to determine how good this season goes.
I mean, just in general, they need to figure out who their second right tackle is, regardless of what they end up doing long term. We've got to figure out who our number 2 right tackle is, because right now we rotated Brock. We had Tyrell Smith in there. I mean, it's been kind of a rotating cast last week, and I don't think either of them had great success, especially against West Virginia. So I'm hoping that we see them have success against what should be even if they're not necessarily size-wise an FCS type opponent in terms of what they are in the trenches. Ability-wise, they should be a big step down from what we saw with West Virginia, so we should be able to handle them.
Yeah, and to TOOSM's point there, it is an all-season issue. We talked about it. I think we still are better than what could have been. We still have at least guys who can – I mean, yes, Brock got beat on a couple bad sacks. I mean, they looked terrible. But it wasn't he was whiffing every single play.
Yeah, I mean, he had good snaps and bad snaps.
Yeah.
We need to essentially, mitigate the big problems, and you can't get beat off the line. Getting beat after you make your initial punch, you at least give your quarterback some time to see the rush, potentially escape, take care of themselves even if they can't. You don't get a situation like Braxton had last week where it was an Olay block by Brock, and all of a sudden he's got a strip sack there in the red zone.
Well, can I ask this? And this goes back again to scheme and to offensive coaches. You put a guy out there, and on that sack inside at the fourth down sack,
yep,
there was no help to his side.
No,
it was strictly. And you're sitting here, and I'm a layman when it comes to it, and it's like that's Brock, who's a center, who I think can play right tackle if you give him enough reps and give him enough time. But you're going to go out there on fourth down and give him no help against a guy who has beat him multiple times during the game?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
And I mean, I'll be honest, it wasn't Brock's best game, but at the same time, he was definitely put in situations where it was going to be hard for him to be successful. And some of that goes back to Vice not having a plan B, and some of that goes back to the staff in general not really having what they need in terms of depth at the offensive line position across the board. And we said that was going to be a problem, right? So we felt better about this offensive line than we felt in the spring depth wise. I think we're probably still a little iffy.
One person short. We're one person short.
We said it the whole time. We were most shaky at what our third tackle was going to be, and we're still shaky at what the third tackle is going to be.
And it showed significantly. All right, Brian, this was mentioned a couple times this week, once by Chris Coleman at TSL, another by French over at the Key Play. And the question is Braxton Burmeister hurt in some way? We saw it Saturday. There were no read options. There haven't been any read options for a while. He's still running, and sometimes a little bit recklessly, when especially that 26-yard run, he put his body on the line to get that. Do you think he's hurt in some way, or do you think this is what happened at Middle Tennessee and taking a good hit at North Carolina has essentially had us crawl into a hole with what we're doing with him? Or do you think he's legitimately hurt?
Like, I don't know at this point. I think it probably has more to do with the latter than the former. I think he probably is banged up. I think he's probably getting treatment on that shoulder from the North Carolina hit, from the bigger hit against Middle Tennessee State. So he's probably getting treatment on it, but I don't think it's necessarily impacting his ability to play the game. But I think the staff is making a pointed choice of taking the read elements out of our offense, except on a couple situational calls, like on that 4th and 1, where we're not calling anything that is either a design run or a read option. We've pretty much taken the read out of the playbook. Braxton is just carrying out fakes at this point. He is not actually reading and making a decision to give the ball. So it's going to be interesting to see if we bring some of that back as the season goes along. So I'm not sure if he's hurt or not in terms of limiting his ability. But I definitely think he's probably banged up to a point where they're making changes. And I'm not certain that that's a good thing, because while I want to keep Braxton healthy, at some point you're cutting your nose off to spite your face, with limiting what is a run first quarterback and taking away his greatest asset.
It's very true. It's very true. And, again, although the access has gotten better this year, there's still a lot we don't know. But to me, it's to your point, the nose and face thing. If you're protecting him, then you might as well play Knox Kadum, because he and Knox, passing wise, I would say on the same level. At least with Knox, Knox is not the athlete Braxton is, but at least once every 10 jet sweeps or every 10 read options, he could pull one down and get 6 or 7 yards where he'd have to respect it. So they need to make a decision. And that decision, either you're going to play with him full bore or you're going to bench him. And they have to make that decision, because if it is something where they feel like, he can get hurt more, well, is it something he could sit 3 weeks and he'd be okay?
Yeah. If he's not healthy enough to run the full offense, you need to sit him down. If he is, then you need to run the full offense.
There you go. Exactly. All right, Brian. Once every 2 years, other than the Virginia Tech game that happens on this Saturday, golf takes over my main TV.
Ryder Cup, baby.
Ryder Cup, Whistling Straits. I don't know who else will be out there watching it. I am a golf nerd. I love it. I literally, before we walked in tonight, I was watching live from the Ryder Cup, seeing all the pairings. It's one of those events. It's like the Masters for me. It's like several other things I am going to try to get to in the next 5 to 10 years. Like, seriously, probably once all my kids are in school age. So I can be like, hon, I'm going with some people and I'm going up here. Bye. Love you.
Yeah. It's such a fun event to watch, because it's such a individual achievement sport that turns into this hyper, team atmosphere, it's just such a big switch in the dynamic that it's so awesome to watch.
And it's the crowds too, because the
crowds are huge.
The crowds are massive. And even with the Masters and even all the big events, there can be roars, right? There can be roars. Somebody hits an eagle at 13 at Augusta, it echoes. But at this, to me, what Ryder Cup is they literally drop a college football atmosphere on a golf course with 100,000 people.
It's sustained, and you don't usually have that at golf events. And
you have an enemy. And you have chants, and you have, roars, and you have the guys smack talking. Where normally if Rory McIlroy, the Euro, would sink a birdie putt, he would just walk off the hole, tip his hat. You remember a couple of years ago when he put that one on top of Reed, the finger wag no, it's awesome. So I'm off work Friday. So after I'm going to be coming back. It tees at 8:30. I'm going to swing by, get a big cup of coffee, probably maybe go to Chick-fil-A, get a nice chicken sandwich, or maybe Rise, get a nice big chicken sandwich, and then sitting here probably for the better part of 9 hours, not moving. So
Rise is the move, man. Go to Rise.
Rise is the move. Go USA, beat the Euros. Now, guys, tonight, before we turn into Know the Enemy U of R, we are going to take a quick pause with a message from our digital partners. All right, guys. Know the Enemy, University of Richmond, coached by Russ Huseman. They are a top 25 FCS program, have been for a couple years now. Just missed the playoffs last year, probably based more on not playing enough games than actually the record itself. But we're going to kick off tonight with their defense. Brian, you told me they are a 4-2-5 defense, and I remember listening to the presser on Monday. Fuente mentions that 5 of their defensive linemen could play for us. Well, did we recruit any of them is the first question I have for walk-on opportunities. Because, Brian, the first guy we talk about tonight, defensive tackle, Kobe Turner out of Clifton, Virginia, 6'3", 290. He was a walk-on. And he's a redshirt senior. In his career, 117 tackles, 25 tackles for loss, 12.5 sacks. Was the 2020 Coast CAA Defensive Player of the Year from walk-on, and now he is getting looked as an NFL prospect to get drafted next fall. What are you seeing from this big guy on tape?
Motor guy, really good use of his hands, good job working leverage, getting off blocks. You usually don't see tackle machines like this at the defensive tackle position, and he eats things up. So we're going to have a handful with him in the middle. Hopefully we end up working out something at tackle, so we have what is probably our 3 best combo in there with Brock and Lasitas and either Caleb or Johnny at right guard to be able to keep him in check. If we slide Brock out, then we're probably getting a little bit thinner in the middle there than I'd like to. So yeah, he's going to be the big player on defense that we've got to watch. He is their game-changing talent on the defense.
All right. So again, Kobe Turner, number 98, walk-on turned All-American, turned NFL prospect. So keep an eye on him. All right. Next guy I want to talk about, Brian. Let's talk about Darius Reynolds, the 6'2" defensive end, 250 pounds, out of Yorktown. 2020 actually led the CAA in sacks. He had like 5 in 4 games, which was very impressive. He is a 6th-year senior. In his career, 93 tackles, 19 tackles for loss, and 13 sacks. So really last year, it looked like that really was his coming out party, and he's played pretty solid this year. What are you seeing from Darius? Where's he lining up for us?
Yeah, he definitely turned the edge last year. He's lining up the defensive end. They'll swap sides with those DNs, but he really is kind of their speed rush, the guy off the edge that they're bringing, especially on third and long. He's pinning his ears back and coming after the quarterback. Looks like you said, he's really seemed to turn the corner last year with the spring season into this year. So got to make sure that our tackles are holding up in pass pro. We can't have what we had last week at the right tackle position. And really both tackles overall didn't have a great game, but Tenuta held up a whole lot better than we did on the right side overall. So we got to make sure that we keep him in check and don't get Braxton hit unnecessarily.
Depending on who starts at right tackle with Reynolds, do you think we're going to, if he's lining up on the right tackle side, are we going to have to essentially put Gallo over there, or at least have someone, whoever's in the backfield, chip every play? Or do you think whoever it might be could hold up against his talent level?
I'd like to see us at least give that a try before we start sending help that way. It's a pretty decent stress test to see if we're holding up better than we did last week. I'd like to see us be able to. There's no reason that we should not be able to hold up against this defensive line overall. Like I said, Kobe Turner's definitely a handful, but the other guys are FCS caliber players. Darius Reynolds is a good version of that, but there's still a cap there.
Got it. All right, Brian. We looked at the D-line. Really not going to look at the secondary tonight because I think the 2 guys in the middle with what we've been doing on offense are the guys we've got to look at. And what we're looking at is the linebackers. We're going to start with number 41, Tyler Dressler out of Covington, Virginia, 6'3", 245, was an all-CAA linebacker last year. In his career, 182 tackles, 18 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, and an interception. Now, Brian, is this our Mike, or is this our more backer type position?
Dressler is more of the Mike, and the next guy we'll talk about, Tristan Wheeler, is more of the backer.
Okay.
Um, Dressler does a good job of getting off blocks and making tackles when they need to in the running game. Neither of them are great in terms of their coverage, so that's going to be an area where we can take advantage. But Dressler's definitely going to be the harder in terms of handling the blocks inside the tackles.
All right. Any liabilities in coverage? Is this where we should take advantage of a Dressler?
Yeah, I mean, really, like I said, both of these linebackers, both Tyler Dressler and Tristan Wheeler, are, I'd say, just average at best in coverage. That's
Okay.
where I think we should attack them. And in general, I think we need to get really everybody across the board involved in the passing game this week, and hopefully we can kind of work ourselves into a little more of a groove there.
Little tease there, little tease for what's coming up later in the Hokie Gamma version.
That's a tease, ladies and gentlemen.
That is a tease. All right. Next guy I want to talk about. This guy actually really impressive. You already mentioned his name, Tristan Wheeler, number 30, linebacker, Bethlehem, PA, 6'2", 228. All first CAA first team last year. In his 2-year career, 167 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 2 forced fumbles. 2019, he was the CAA Defensive Rookie of the Year, and he was also one of the 20 finalists for the Rice Award. The Rice Award is given to the top FCS freshman. In 2019, it was won by Trey Lance. I'm very familiar with him. He's a hell of a player for Florida State. This guy was a finalist, and you think about FCS. There's over 100 schools, and there's only 20 named to the finalists. He was one of them, and
Yep.
those stats in a couple of years, Brian. He is, he might not be much in coverage, but he can tackle.
Yeah, he can definitely tackle. He makes a lot of good plays, and he doesn't miss a lot of tackles. I think that's the big thing, is that he does good there, and he does a good job of cleaning up kind of on the spill area when he has that kind of edge responsibility there. So he does really good at getting off the blocks as well, similar to Dressler, but does not. He's still kind of a liability in coverage. So hopefully we can take advantage of him there. And like I said, I want to see us do a little bit more with that. So we'll see how that goes.
All right, Brian. Now I'm looking here. There are a couple guys that you want to talk about in the secondary, and the first one here that we're looking at is 6'2" Amar Hall out of Baltimore, Maryland. So obviously, younger guy out of Maryland. Played 4 games in the spring. And ranked 4th on the team in tackles, which is pretty impressive for a younger guy, especially a defensive back position. What are we seeing from him, Brian?
So this is kind of like what we were talking about with some of the safety play last week with West Virginia, is that he makes some good plays here and there, but he also is prone to some big mistakes. So hopefully we can take advantage of the mistakes that he will make in the game. Redshirt freshman, I mean, there's still growing pains there, so that kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And again, the thing I'm focusing on this week is what we can do in the passing game to take some of this, allow the offense to have a little bit more space to operate, because that's a big problem that we've had, especially early in the West Virginia game. We had it early in the Middle Tennessee State game. We got tight in the second half against UNC. We've got to do something to kind of space this field out a little bit more to let this offense start to hum a little bit better.
Well, I mean, I think if we take a look at some of those 3rd and 4th quarter route concepts, if we can start just getting those involved early in the game, whether we're taking shots or not.
Yeah.
Because
I'm not saying we need to drop back and take shots all day, but I want to see.
Oh, yeah.
The 2 guys we're talking about, so Amir Hall, and we're going to talk about Aaron Banks here in a second. Both of them are prone to make mistakes in the secondary. They are solid players, but they are prone to make mistakes. That's where we need to capitalize. We need to be able to go out there and beat these guys and put some yardage up on them this week.
All right. Speaking of Aaron Banks, 5'11", 180-pound redshirt junior out of Stevens City. Career just 32 tackles. So obviously, in a 4-year career, he's only played 16 games, so sparingly. It looks like this is his year to start as a redshirt junior. You already mentioned it one time. What sort of errors are you seeing that he's making, like you mentioned with Hall?
So him in particular got beat on a couple double moves. Doesn't not a very willing tackler. He doesn't do a good job of coming up and making the play, tackling as well. So I think we should be able to run at him. I think we should be able to throw at him if we work some double move concepts into the game there. So like a hitch and go or sluggo or something like that.
All right, Brian. Houston's known for his defense, but just looking at the tape in general, I know you really looked at the Villanova game, which, I mean, guys, they basically had a 2-touchdown lead, going into the last 2 minutes of that game, and they lost. Or a 1-touchdown lead, 2-touchdown lead with 9 minutes to play, 1-touchdown lead with 2 minutes to play, and they essentially gave up 21 points in the course of 9 minutes.
They more or less shut down Villanova's offense for like 3.5 quarters. because I think 10 of those points that Villanova got early on were on very short fields. So, Richmond did a good job against Villanova for 3.5 quarters and then just kind of let that one slip away from them.
All right. Well, let's flip over to the offensive side of the ball, Brian. And I know there's one offensive lineman you want to talk about, and that's going to be Tim Coleman out of Stone Mountain, Georgia. He was a transfer from Furman, and actually something that you don't see too often, a 3-star guy for 247 and for Rivals. So he did have some recruiting looked at while he was a recruit. He was a freshman All-American while he was at Furman, then transfers over to Richmond. And right now, in his career at Richmond, he's played in 29 games, so it looks like he got there. He was in some sort of role for the last 3 years and continuing with his role this year. What are we seeing from this left tackle on tape, Brian, at 6'4", 320?
He's their most solid and consistent offensive lineman. So really, if we can figure out a way to, get Garbett on the opposite side of him going, and hopefully Barno can maybe get some one-on-one situations and still beat him here because, we've seen Garbett kind of take steady steps here, but we need to see, I think, the entirety of the defensive line take care of this offensive line. The offensive line overall is, I'd say, average. They're not built like your typical FCS line. Like I said, both sides in the trenches, they've got some good size to them. And Tim Coleman's probably the best of the bunch. So if we can show out and show that we can actually get pressure on the quarterback in one-on-one situations against him, I'll feel pretty good about steps we're taking on the defensive line.
All right. What kind of offensive concept though are they?
So they're kind of that power smash mouth spread. They like to run the ball out of the spread concepts, read option, but they'll sling it downfield as well. Very similar offense to kind of what Ohio State kind of runs.
That's what I was about to say. Is this something, if we looked at Ohio State, this would be a much lesser version of that?
Yeah. It's kind of a simplified version of what Ohio State runs.
Awesome. All right, well, let's look at some skill position guys, and I want to start with probably the guy that jumped out the most to me. Aaron Dykes, the 5'11", 200-pound running back out of Knoxville, Tennessee. So far this year, 215 yards from scrimmage for 4 touchdowns, and we're facing another stud kick returner, which we did great last week, but don't sleep on this guy. 1,197 yards and 3 touchdowns in his career. He's almost averaging 28 a return. He housed a 98-yarder against Villanova. So this guy's got versatility written all over him, both in the run, the pass, and the special teams game. What are you seeing on the tape, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with another versatile running back like we were last week. Guy that can run between the tackles, run outside, catch the ball in space, make guys miss. Not as elite as Letty was last week, but still can do all those type of similar things. So we're going to have to be ready on defense to not only get off blocks and make the tackle, make sure we're gap sound, but also When we're there in the passing game, we got to make the tackle. We don't want to give him a free run in open space.
All right. Now, the next guy I'm going to talk about, Seven Smith. I'm assuming, just looking at the data, he's not a pass catcher at all, is he?
No, this is definitely kind of short yardage, change of pace, third and long back if you need an extra man to block.
Okay.
That's the type of player he is for them.
All right. Out of Winchester, Virginia, 5'9", 200. So obviously, you talk about power, a little shorter, but the same.
Yeah, he's that stocky back that still has that athleticism, that little wiggle.
Good yards per carry at 5.8. 157 for the year with 1 touchdown. His reception numbers look like, I think he's got like 9 for like 14 yards. Literally, he is the last option, I'm going to guess.
Yeah, he's very much a dump it if no one else is open type situation. Just get what you can get. They're not scheming him into the passing game at all.
All right. Do either of these guys, obviously they're not Letty Brown. They're not Division I level, but do they either one scare you where if we make an error, they can make us pay with a touchdown?
I mean, the big thing is with Dykes, when we're there, we got to make the tackle. We can't let him get to the second level and have space to show his athleticism.
All right,
that's the big thing. That's the area that scares me. That if he gets past that kind of second level, with a lot of space to run, he's shown the vision in the open field on special teams. He can house a big play.
All right, so let's keep an eye on number 3, Aaron Dykes. Let's make sure we don't make any boneheaded assignment mistakes like we did against WVU and give them something that we shouldn't.
Be where you need to be, make the tackle. Mm-hmm. That's it.
All right, let's look at the couple of the other skill position guys, Brian. Isaac Brown, one of their big wideouts out of Winchester, also Savon Smith's high school teammate. Yep. First year really in a production role because in his first 19 games only had 46 receptions in the last 3 seasons. 3 games in, he's already a quarter of a way there to hitting his production numbers, reception-wise, and then he's already at half the yard. So obviously, like most FCS teams, usually your redshirt juniors, seniors, maybe even a grad transfer is going to be, getting their production then, not freshmen and sophomores. So what are we seeing out of Isaac, Brian?
Isaac Brown is kind of the stick mover for them. He's starting to come on a little bit. Definitely a good outlet for them on third down. Nothing too scary in terms of deep threats or anything like that. But he's definitely a guy we got to keep an eye on to make sure that we get off the field on third down.
All right, so one of those. Does it look like, we'll talk about Mancuso in a few minutes here, but does it look like when it is that 3rd and 5, are you seeing Mancuso's head look for him quicker than he's looking for anybody else on the field?
I mean, based on the play calls that they're getting, they definitely give him those, get past the stick routes on those key downs.
Got it. All right. Another guy, a little bit more of a backstory here because it's a Division I talent guy. Leroy Henley, 6'2", 215 out of Pompano Beach, Florida. Transferred down from ECU. Had very minimal production down at ECU for 2 seasons. Just 24 receptions in 16 games for 264 yards. And right now, 7 games with U of R already eclipsed the yards at 324 with a couple touchdowns, with the same number of receptions. He was a 3-star out of high school, and this is one that catches your eye because we always talk about certain states, top 100 players are really good players. He was ranked number 75 in Florida the year he came out. So that probably means he does have some talent, Brian. What is the tape telling you about his talent?
I mean, tape's telling me he's a pretty good all-around receiver with the ability to get deep and take the top off the defense at times. So, he's one that we want to watch in terms of those big plays. We want to make sure we're not giving up big plays and letting him get open in the back part of the defense and running free.
All right. Let me ask this about it, because when you talk about him getting the big plays, are the big plays him getting there, or is it more of a, all right, we're scheming to get him deep because he's not going to beat everybody off the line, but if we can get him 35 yards downfield, it'll be guys will be step for step with him, not right on top of him.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. He's shown some ability to get open in coverage, but he's also, they definitely do a good job of scheming him open on some of those routes. Making the safety have to make a choice, and that gives him the ability to run free sometimes.
All right. Give me the two routes that you see the most from them that we have to worry about.
I mean, we got burned a couple times on it, but they like to run the corner with him. Did. So, and they run dig a lot. So linebackers got to make sure we're not moving out of our zones. Safety's got to be able to come up and make a tackle there as well.
All right. We're going to look at the tight end now too, Brian. Now, this is a tight end. I look at his size, and I look at his background. It seems to me, I don't know how this guy didn't wind up at a D1 as a preferred walk-on. His name is Connor Devane, number 83. He's 6'5". He's 256 pounds, out of Medford, New Jersey. He is considered a redshirt freshman because of the NCAA rule, but he played in every game last year, all 4 of them. And he's played in every game this year so far. He also played basketball in high school, where, he essentially averaged 18 points a game as a senior. So definitely showing some athleticism there. And so far this year, the first couple games, not a lot of statistics, but the last game, Brian, 3 catches, 50 yards. So something happened between the first 2 games, maybe because they blew Lehigh and they blew Howard out, is why he didn't see anything. But what do you see from Devaney on tape?
He kind of has that classic tight end frame. He's definitely more of a balanced tight end. He's a good blocker, good in routes, but he's not someone like a joker tight end that's just out there splitting out, lining up all over the field. He's not that type of a tight end. And you talk about, guys that are playing like lower level college football that have that Division I body. I'll throw this one back at you here. We had a guy my freshman year at Hampton-Sydney, Cole Downer, ended up in the Macon game, caught the winning touchdown for us in 2002. Transferred from Hampton-Sydney to Clemson and started for them for a year. So you sometimes see these bigger body guys at these lower level schools, and it's kind of crazy like that. So he kind of fits that, like I said, the classic tight end mold, which is why you see him have some big games when those concepts are open, and then you see him, almost disappear when they're not. So, he's not somebody that they're scheming their offense around, but he's definitely a guy that if he's open, he can make the catch and do some things with it.
Well, that's pretty wild because, you normally don't see. If anything, you see the D3 guy maybe get up to the FCS level, right?
Yep. Because
of some reason. Unless they're playing at like Mountain Union or Whitewater. They'll stay there their whole time. But, it's crazy that someone went from D3 to Clemson, and in the mid-2000s, Clemson wasn't terrible. They hadn't had that quite dip under Tommy yet. But, if you're this guy or if you're other schools and you see the body type and you see what he does, do you think there's going to be some sniffing around? I mean, he's a redshirt. He's a freshman. He's got 4. He's got multiple years of eligibility left. Do you think somebody's going to sneak around to U of R's campus and try to convince him to, hey, come on over?
Yeah, I mean, there's that possibility there, but I think he's going to need to show a little bit more than we've seen from him so far. But he's definitely got the body type. I'd like to see a little bit more production than what we've seen thus far. But he's definitely a guy you got to keep an eye on, just because he does have the ability when he's called upon.
Very nice. All right, last person we're going to look at will be the quarterback. That is Joe Mancuso, 6'4", 215, out of Blairsville, Georgia. I looked at his 2019 stats because I feel like getting a full season of FCS, that would be better than trying to go 4 games. Solid, not spectacular through the air, 2,100 plus yards, 13 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. But what got me scared, Brian, is when I looked at his rushing statistics. 647 yards, little over 4.5 yards a carry, 4.7, 10 touchdowns. So whether he's just using his 6'4", 215 frame to go through people, or if he's got some feet, it scares me because of things that have happened in the past with Virginia Tech and guys who can move.
Yeah, I definitely hear your concern, and I'm going to probably not alleviate it, but I'll at least give it a little bit of a massage here.
All right.
Overall athleticism, he's closer to Sam Howell than like elite level players that we've seen in the past.
That's not terrible.
That being said, because of the style of offense that they run, he does get a good number of carries. And a lot of times those carries are out of the read option, where if we aren't being disciplined, he can get a 10 or 15 yard free run before we really have somebody there to make a play. So that's where the concern is. So he, overall athleticism, he's not a Bryce Perkins that's going to run, the big one on you. But at the same time, he is athletic enough where he's going to make plays consistently in the offense, and we've got to be able to tackle him, and we got to be disciplined in being where we need to be.
All right. What about his arm? I mean, I see 10 interceptions to 13 touchdowns. That's almost 1-to-1. I mean, is he an errant throw guy, or is it he's got a good enough arm where there's windows, he's trying to squeeze it in there based on their offense?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got a good arm. I'd say accuracy is about average, but he has the arm that can make all the throws that you want a quarterback to make.
All right.
Yeah, so the big thing, again, similar to last week, is to get pressure on him in the pocket and make him get rid of the ball before he's ready.
All right. Well, let's hope we can do that, and let's go ahead and flip it, Brian. Let's get to the Hoka Gamma version. And we got offense lined up first, but since we're coming off their offense, I want to flip to our defense. You just said it. Get him off his spot. Amari Barno, we both said this. We have not seen him in the stat lines, and we really haven't seen him make much of an impact the last 2 games.
Yep.
He has to make an impact this game. He's got to get his footing back and make an impact in this game.
Yeah, we need to do a good job of getting him ready for this game and ready to make an impact on the defense. We've seen 2 games in a row where he's been steady, but he hasn't flashed that ability that we've needed and that we got from him against UNC. I don't know whether that's getting tape from UNC and they figured out a way to slow some of that down, or what it may be. But whatever it is, we need to see the ability that he's flashed last year and the ability that we saw against UNC come out more consistently.
All right. The next one, and we discussed this Sunday ad nauseum. The first 2 games was probably some of the best tackling games we might have had in the last decade. Saturday, not so much. Nothing burned us for a touchdown per se, but it kept drives going. What do we have to do to clean it up, Brian?
I think the big thing is just, I mean, it's got to be tackling and it's got to be consistently being where you need to be so you're not reaching. So we saw on the opening touchdown, Dax come in, missed the tackle. Part of that was because someone wasn't in the right position, right? So a lot of times missed tackles occur because we're not gap sound, we're not making the right run fits, things like that. So it starts by doing those things right, and then that kind of can feed into making the tackle. But another thing that we saw last week was a couple plays. I'm going to call out specifically Chamari Connor on a third down, coming for a kill shot, and instead of wrapping up, and then if you don't get the guy to the ground, at some point, they end up making a play after the fact, and that cost us a third down conversion there. So if you're going to go for the kill shot, make sure you're wrapping up too.
Absolutely, Brian. The next thing I'm going to say is I can't remember who it was against West Virginia or was on West Virginia, but after the Waller interception, I was watching that playback today. And if he got out of that little muck, there was the wall. The defensive line had gotten out in front. And, it's one of those things. I think now we're so accustomed to the way the offense is working that it's one of those, like, score. We're too close. Score.
We need an old-fashioned Beamer ball defensive touchdown in a key moment. And I think that's going to be what we need this week. And not necessarily to win the football game, but just from a mentality standpoint, I'd like to see us score a defensive touchdown this week, whether it be a scoop and score or a pick six.
Yep. Something that the defense kind of was gaining its swag back in the second half. I think something like that early could really set the tone for the whole game. We haven't had one in a while. You feel like it's coming the way you've talked about sometimes making bad judgments. He threw one against Villanova and Mancuso, so maybe this is the game.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's flip it to the offense, Brian. What do you want to see? What's the first thing you want to see out of the offense this week?
I want to see better matriculating of the offense up and down the field, along with the ability to hit some big plays, whether in the running game or the passing game. We shouldn't be forced off the field as often as we were against Middle Tennessee State against this defense. We need to consistently move the football and put points on the board.
All right. And, that's why it's one of those things. That's why the second half, kind of what happened, I want to see more of.
Yeah.
That 7, 6, 10, 12. Because the way, you start matriculating the ball, the shots start coming. The shots, if you want to go downfield, they're going to be there because there's going to be tighter coverage up. But also, they can't come but so far up, right? You also get running lanes starting to be open because they're not just keying in that, they're running the ball, find the gap and go. So it's kind of both ways, right? You hit those short passes. I know it's something you really want to see, Brian, because it's one of those things, like if you just can hit some short stuff, some easy stuff, A, you get Braxton's confidence up, and B, you start opening up every single other thing we do well. And for the life of me, I don't understand why we can't implement that in the game plans early, but I'll digress on it. Now, the second piece, Brian, we've talked about it already, talking about the right tackle situation. But we've got to, if regardless, we need to keep Braxton upright.
Yeah. We need to keep Braxton upright so the passing game can have the effect that we want it to. And I think that's the big thing that we need to focus on is making sure Braxton has the time for this offense to function and to get the passing game going. And I think hopefully that will get, because right now he looks like some of his dropbacks, he's kind of got that dancing feet in the backfield and ready to take off pretty quick. And I don't know if some of that is just not having a good feel for the pocket, whether it's the injury concern or whether it's just feeling a little shaky about the offensive line. But I'd like to see us get into a little more of a groove there this week. And hopefully Braxton will play better as a result of that.
Absolutely. That's really the big key is getting him comfortable back there. And I know it's one of those things you can say it's easy and whatnot. Like, oh, it's so easy to say get him comfortable. But the piece becomes getting somebody comfortable is also getting 3 and 5s and making them comfortable. Because it's like anything. He gets comfortable at 3 and 5. Eventually, when you go to a 7, if no one has been up in his grill at 3 and 5, when he hits that 7th foot, it's not going to be crap, somebody's about to hit me. It's going to be where's Trey, where's Tay? Do we have the seam open, right?
Yep.
It's mental. It's one of the biggest mental pieces of it. That's why you see some of the best guys, of all time, they get comfortable early. Next thing you know, they hit that 7th foot. My guys are holding up for me. I'm not going to get hit. So, yeah. All right, last piece, Brian. To show us he's not injured, let's put the read back in read option.
Yeah, that's an absolute must. And we talked about it earlier. It's not so much that we want to see the quarterback have a ton of carries. We don't want to have the quarterback have unnecessary carries. But the point of the read option is to let the quarterback keep the football when it is schematically correct to do so, meaning that he will have some degree of free run to get some yardage and still have the ability to get down if he needs to. I don't want him taking unnecessary hits, but at the same time, the way this offense functions, we cannot take the reads out of the read option because it becomes a very generic offense without that element to it.
Very true. And the read option, same way, you get a little RPO going, right? You get a little RPO, you're holding the ends, you're holding the linebackers, lanes are opening up. So, again, by not having it, and teams are just saying, well, they're going to hand it off, crash the line, drop back into your zone, find the gap. We're simplistic. We're basic. And, sometimes the way we run our offense in general, it looks too vanilla, and it makes you be honest. It makes you question, how big is this playbook?
Yeah.
And it needs to be bigger than what it is right now because it's way too easy for the coordinators to key without having superior talent.
Yep. I think that's the big thing is that, without – there's still the threat there for Braxton to run just because we are carrying out the fake, so they've got to honor it. But pretty much the only person honoring it now is that Reed defender, right? Nobody else on the defense is really caring about whether Braxton keeps it or not. Your DN is, doing their squeeze and pop technique. And outside of that, nobody's really focusing on it because we haven't shown that we're going to run it to any degree of frequency, right?
No, we haven't ran any. His running has been some scrambling. And the thing
he's had a couple design runs that were the way quarterback design runs.
Quarterback powers with a guy significantly smaller when you have a perfect option to bring off the bench. Let's not even get into that because we'll get real pissed off. Like you have a guy on the bench who can do this, just let him do that job. Yep. All right, Brian, we've talked the enemy. We've talked the version we want to see this week of the Hokies. Let's make our predictions here, man. And if I chose Richmond, no, I would still be on the show. So
Curtis vetoed that one real quick.
No. First of all, being in Richmond, we hear a lot about Richmond. We know more about them. And are they a good team? Yes. But this is not the Richmond from the early or the mid-2000s that were built under Clausen in London. coached up. This isn't the one who competed for national championship and knocked off UVA. They're a good team, but they're not good enough to compete at the Division I level. I think this is going to be similar to Middle Tennessee. I think we might start a little faster, but probably not fast enough for us as fans. I'm going to go 34-13. Comfortable 3-score win.
Okay.
Say you, Ron.
I'm very close to that. I'm actually going about a touchdown more than you on the Hokie side there. I'm going 42-13. I see this as being – this is going to go like Middle Tennessee if the Hokies actually woke up in the first quarter.
All right.
So they actually played as if the first quarter was a thing. So we at least put points up in the first quarter. Probably not as fast of a start as we'd like, but still a lot better than what we saw against Middle Tennessee. Pour it on late, get some of the second string guys in there. And I think that's going to be important too, because we need to see, because depth is such a big problem for us right now. The more reps we can get against live competition, the better we're going to be. That starts at quarterback, getting Knox more reps this week, especially if Braxton is truly nursing some sort of injury and we might need Knox at some point later in this season. I want to see more offensive line rotations. Figure out what the fuck you want to do at right tackle. This is the week. Figure out who the third tackle is. And I mean, I'd say on defense, get some of those young guys on the defensive line some reps, because we're going to need them long term as well.
Just get them the reps, because the way things look, you could be short next year. Just the way we've recruited and everything. So yeah.
Yep.
So absolutely. we are back to our ways of both picking the Hokies to win, and in a, I wouldn't say impressive, but a 3-touchdown plus fashion for both.
Yeah.
All right, Brian. Time for Saturday pick'ems here. We're going to do 10 more games, 7 ACC, 3 out of conference. Brian is as mid can be. I'm below mid. So let's see what happens this week. And let's start them on Friday night, Brian, just up the road here at 64. Wake Forest versus UVA. Wake coming off a 35-14 win over FSU.
Yep.
UVA scored more than 35, but still lost by 20 to UNC 59-39. So shake your head on that one. Since you are the leader in the house, who are you taking on this one?
Man, this one I've been struggling with, dude. I like Wake top to bottom better. I like UVA's offense. The question's going to be, is Wake's defense enough to kind of hold them down enough for Wake's offense to do just enough to pull out the victory? Because it's essentially a pick. I mean, it's a 4, not quite in the pick'em zone. I'll take UVA and lay the points.
You're going to take UVA and lay the points. All right. Brian, after seeing that game last week where they didn't – the bigger part of last week was this. They were playing UNC without 3 starters on the offensive line. Without 3 starters. UNC didn't have to punt.
Yep.
They did not have to punt. And to me, that's the bigger concern, because you're dealing with Sam Hartman, a veteran quarterback.
Yep.
At Wake Forest, a very good offense, and a solid defense.
Yeah.
I think this game's going to be high. And looking at it right now, or high scoring. Looking at it right now, the over-under in this game currently, Brian, is at 68.5. I think that's too low. I'd go over. I think Wake gets one additional stop, and they win this game 42-38. Give me the points, because I think Wake's going to pull the road upset here in Charlottesville on Friday night.
It'll make me happy. I mean, Wake is a much more likable team than UVA. rivalry aside.
All right, another one Friday night. 2 ACC games on Friday night here, Ron. Syracuse goes out of conference again where they play Liberty. Liberty in the Dome is a 6-point favorite, so Malik Willis and Liberty get are the road favorites. So a home team getting points. What am I thinking on this?
Yep.
Liberty so far this year has played Campbell, Troy, and ODU. Well, ODU is sort of this year. Campbell's obviously FCS. So the only one I look at is Troy. And Troy, always, you hear about them every once in a while. They're a pretty good team, you know. And they played a tight game with Troy. It was they only won by 8 points. So when I see a home team, the funkiness of the Dome getting 6, I don't know who wins the game outright, but I'm going to take a home team. Give me the points. I think Syracuse comes to fight. And, again, don't know if they're going to win it, but I think it's a lot closer game than Vegas thinks.
Yeah, I'm with Cuse in the points as well, and it really just boils down to, I think with some extra tape now, we've got some tape on Liberty. Team like Troy played them tough. They're playing in the Carrier Dome, which is notoriously funky.
Yes.
I think just those things alone will keep it close, and I think it's going to be too close for that 6.
All right. We're both on the Cuse train. All right, Brian, you do this one. You love BC or hated BC so much last week. They play Mizzou this week. This is a coin flip game. Mizzou laying 1.5. So whoever wins this game and whoever you take, it's probably going to win. What do you think?
Yeah, I really don't know what to think about this game because I don't think BC is quite the same team that they were now that Jerkovic is out. At the same time, they're better than I thought they were going to be, at least initially. I'll take BC here.
All right, Brian.
They burned me last week. I'm not gonna defy them again.
He's not defying them again. Brian, I would go with you if BC didn't put up 220 yards of offense last week. They won that game with a quarterback throwing 34 yards.
Yep.
I don't know how to figure how Mizzou's only a 1.5-point favorite at BC. I know BC has a solid defense, but I essentially think against Mizzou that defense isn't going to get anything, or that offense isn't going to get anything going. So I'm going to take Mizzou. I'll lay the 1.5. I think Mizzou wins this one big by 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
All right. You tell me how this is the line on this game. Okay. Hold on. I'm turning the hat backwards because this one's confusing.
Yep.
Florida State, Louisville. Florida State, after hanging with Notre Dame, losing on the last section play to Jacksonville, and then going blown out by 3 touchdowns at Wake Forest. This is a home game for them. That's great. Louisville played its best game of the year against UCF. Louisville's only a 2-point favorite.
Vegas says momentum doesn't matter. They're taking talent over momentum because right now Louisville. There's no reason. Like to me, this is legal limit Louisville.
I'm with you 100%. Legal limit Louisville because if somehow FSU can figure out what they're doing, which I don't know if they can. Louisville kind of finally found its footing last week against
it's 2. You're essentially telling me just Louisville has to win outright, and I think they will. So
yeah, I do too. I do too. All right. The next one is the stinkiest line of the week.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Robbie, if you're listening tonight, which you're probably not, you're probably just pulling home from the field house down at North Wilkes. Clemson -10 against NC State. I know Clemson. I think that delay game is getting everyone a wrong look at them. They played an elite defense in Georgia. They did move the ball. They weren't stalemated all night.
Yeah.
They screwed themselves a few times. They moved the ball against Georgia. They screwed themselves. And after what we saw from the Fighting Dave Dorns when they went down to Mississippi State and laid a fat old goose egg, even though with this game at NC State, I think this is going to be one of those games Dabo gets everybody riled up, and I think they win by 14 to 17 points. I think it'll probably be an entertaining game to watch. I think they pull away late, but I think the 10 points is just I can't fathom why it's 10 points.
Yeah, give me Clemson here too. I was high on NC State, and that Mississippi State game burned me, and I have not forgiven them for that yet. I don't trust them. I don't trust them in a matchup where they need to get a win. So I'm going to go Clemson here. I think they end up figuring out kind of how that offense is going to look with this new personnel. This is the game where we see that come to fruition. Like you said, Dabo's going to have them fully whipped into a lather to play their asses off for this one. So, yeah, I'll take Clemson.
All right. I don't want to.
Oh, yeah?
I don't. After what happened last week, I don't want to make a prediction on this game.
You got to, man.
Okay, next game is Kansas and Duke. And Duke is laying 16 points. And I sit here and the game's at Duke. It's a 4:00. This is going to be a snooze fest. Duke has just burned me so many different ways. The UNC Charlotte game last week after, you know what? Just give me Kansas. At least Kansas is showing some fight under Lance out there. You know, I think they covered the Coastal Carolina game the other week. I don't know if Kansas will outright win, but after Duke screwed me the last few weeks, I'm just going to pick against them until I'm right. Kansas.
So you went with them early. You went against them last week. You're going to stick against them because they burned you.
Against them. Okay. Eventually, they're going to lose.
You're definitely right. This is not a good Duke football team, but they are in a stretch of their schedule where they're playing similarly awful, overall talented teams. So this one's tough as well, just because that 16 is kind of right at, kind of where you think it might be. Definitely don't think Kansas can win this outright. I'm going to go with Duke.
Oh, man.
Barely. 17. It's a 17-point win.
Until Duke wins or until Duke loses, Brian, on these, he's just going to go against me every time.
Yeah, I mean, it's worked in my favor so far, so I'll keep that train rolling.
Exactly. All right, last ACC game we picked, Brian. Georgia Tech, UNC. Georgia Tech could have pulled the shocker of all shockers last week. They didn't in the crazy lightning-filled 9-hour game, what felt like. UNC is laying 12 in this game, Brian. And, this game, it is at Georgia Tech. What are you thinking on this one, man?
I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Georgia Tech has about one Clemson game in them every 5 games. So give me UNC and lay in the points.
Woo! But how often have you been wrong about Georgia Tech in the last?
You know what? We don't talk about these things, man. We do not discuss Georgia Tech history on this podcast.
I'm going to go against you on this.
Well, this is the first week where we're however it goes, someone's either making up significant ground or losing significant ground.
You said UNC, right?
Yeah, I'm going UNC.
I think UNC is just going to have a hangover. I don't think you score on every single possession against
Law of averages coming into play here.
UNC wins this game comfortably, like 31-21. But Georgia Tech, like, late backdoors it. So give me Georgia Tech. Give me the points. This is like now I'll have to go against you whatever you do with Georgia Tech now.
So Duke and Georgia Tech are our new pivot points.
Exactly.
You gotta love that.
All right. Let's go to essentially the three biggest games of the weekend. I'm gonna go a little out of order here, Brian. I got this one at the bottom, but let's look at West Virginia coming off the big win against us last week against Oklahoma in Norman. Oklahoma's a 17-point favorite. And I'm going to say this. So far this year, Oklahoma has not looked like Oklahoma. They haven't. They just haven't. You look at their games this year. Yes, they're 3-0, tight with Tulane. We're not going to count Western Carolina. I don't know how that game got scheduled. Tight with Nebraska.
Yeah.
I think this is the week they blow the doors off someone because I think West Virginia is going to go in there with their heads in the clouds after a huge win that probably should have been a loss. And I think they lose by 28-plus points. Give me Oklahoma and lay the 17.
Yeah, West Virginia treated the game last week like we treated UNC. It was like the spectacle of the fucking year. So I'm right there with you. I feel like Oklahoma's going to finally get into their groove offensively, and they're going to – I'm not going to say blow the doors off, but it could be a 3-touchdown win.
All right. Now we'll go back to the normal order. Let's go back up here. This is a very interesting game. The Fighting Irish of Notre Dame against Wisconsin in Chicago at Soldier Field, essentially a midpoint between Madison and South Bend. Kind of a cool place to do the game. Wisconsin is a 6.5-point favorite. Obviously, we know about the Irish's close call with Florida State, close call with Toledo, and Wisconsin 1-1 out the gate. Notre Dame off a solid win against Purdue. Purdue looks like a better team this year with Brom. And Wisconsin, they played Eastern Michigan and they played Penn State. What are you thinking on this one, Brian? Because this is one with 6.5. They're saying the Wisconsin that we saw that against Penn State is eventually going to punch it in, but they only scored 34 against Eastern Michigan.
Yeah, this is a weird one because I feel like, the loss to Penn State looks probably a little bit better now than it did out the gate. That said, you kind of laid a little bit of an egg overall against Eastern Michigan, even though you came away with the win. Irish looked like they were sleepwalking through two games. Feel like they put a little bit together last week. Still not playing quite to the level that you think they should.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Irish and the points. I feel like it's going to be a tight one down the stretch. It's going to look really similar to kind of how the Wisconsin-Penn State game went.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to definitely take Irish in the points because I think Notre Dame's going to win the game outright. I think a neutral field is going to be the biggest difference there. With the split house, where if this was in Madison at 6.5, I think I'd be taking Wisconsin here. But also, I'm one of those two. I don't want Notre Dame to lose until October 9th. So,
yeah, speaking of which, we got a little comment here. Early thoughts on how we match up against Notre Dame.
Well, if it's the Notre Dame that's been sleepwalking the first 3 weeks, I like our chances. But they've got 2 games back-to-back before us to sort of wake up. I mean, they've got, obviously, Wisconsin this week. And then, next week, I think it's the USC game. No, it's Cincinnati. So they're playing 2 very good opponents leading into Virginia Tech to where even if they lose one of these 2 games, they're probably going to there's probably going to be enough good film out there where they're going to start to make some adjustments.
Yeah. The only thing I'm saying is that we get Fuente with the bye. How does that
True.
work? He's looked good off buys and he's looked awful off buys. So I really don't know what that bodes for us. That being said, if they still are struggling with pass pro and blocking scheme overall by the time we get to that game, I think we'll do all right on defense. It's going to be which somewhat whole field offense can get enough points on the board to get the win, because it's going to be, I think, a defensive struggle both ways.
It's a race to 20. If that game shows right now, it's a race to 20, and the question is, does Chris Tyree break one for them, or does someone like Trey or Tay or even Heem take like a screen or a quick pass to the house against them?
Yep.
And that would be the difference in the game. All right, one more game to pick, Brian. Arkansas versus Texas A&M. Definitely probably the biggest ranked matchup of the week, because obviously, if you didn't know, going next week, it's a really big week for Texas A&M. So kind of back-to-back big weeks with them is at Arkansas, but A&M is sitting on the precipice. They're a couple weeks away from Alabama. And if they get through Arkansas, it's Mississippi State. Arkansas has kind of been the surprise darling so far this year. Arkansas is getting 5.5 points. And A&M, the quarterback who was supposed to start, is out. I think it's too many points to give with the backup quarterback in. They've already proved when they went to Colorado, they struggled without him. They won that game by 3 points. It easily could have been a loss. So give me Arkansas. I don't know who's going to win. I do say this, looking at the over-under in that game, over-under is 48, take the under.
Yep.
With the way Pittman likes to try to slow down a game, where he likes to run the ball, think of him back at Georgia, I think the under is going to hit, and I'll take Arkansas on the points.
I know we're agreeing a lot here down the stretch, but I agree with you 100%. I think it's going to be a game that gets slowed down by the consistent running attack, and I think that with A&M having a backup quarterback, that you don't see the big plays and the consistent drives that you would get from that quarterback. It's going to be kind of a slog at times, even though there is the potential there for some of those plays to hit. So I'm going to take Arkansas on the points as well.
Yep. And if you're just wondering about Arkansas, they're 16th in the country in rushing offense.
Yep.
And A&M's decent, giving up about 162 yards a game. But, again, it's the A&M schedule thus far, the A&M schedule of Kent State, Colorado, and New Mexico. Like, they have to show up. At least with Arkansas, we can say the win over Texas, whether you like Texas or hate Texas, there's talent there. Yeah. I think that's the difference in Pig Suey. All right, Brian, anything broken the last hour and a half since we've been on here?
Nothing that I've seen. We're going into this week. A lot of this week either wraps up most of the out of conference either this week or next week. So we'll be starting to move on to full on conference competition here soon. I know we still got Notre Dame on tap there, but more or less we're kind of moving into the meat of conference play here coming up. So looking forward to more ACC talk here and seeing how some of these coastal matchups shake out as we move forward, because we still got a shot here in the coastal, so got to make the most of it.
Exactly. The one thing we should talk about and this is from earlier today, the Ross Dellinger playoff expansion model. Maybe that'll be our off-week discussion. Next week we'll get on next Wednesday, talk about this model right here, and then pick some games. So, yeah.
There we go.
But, guys, that is going to wrap up tonight's episode of the Boundary Corner podcast. I am Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler.
Visit our website at boundarycornerbt.com to listen to all of our episodes. It is now updated, so when you click on the website, the first thing there for you is our most recent episode. This will be there early tomorrow morning if you want to listen again. While you're there, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast source, including Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcasts. Brian has made it where you can actually subscribe, has just about whatever your favorite source is, click right on it right there. As always, we let our buddy Jason Long play us in, and he plays us out. You can catch him on Spotify and Apple Music. We thank you for listening, and as always, let's go
Hokies!